Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast number 43. Before we start the podcast, I want to remind you that every month we are sending a newsletter with the best of the last month of the podcast. So, yeah, this will be the day where we're sending the newsletter. So, if you wanna be part of it and be part of our creative tribe, just join the newsletter on the link below. Easily click, put your email, your name, and you're good to go. And so now I want to start by introducing you the guest of today, which is Tudor Vasiliu. He's the founder of the Panopticon. The Panopticon is a Romanian Archviz studio based in Bucharest, Romania. And the Panopticon is also the winner of the Best Architectural Image Award 2019, given by TCI Architect, which is basically the Oscars for Archivists. So yeah, it was amazing having Tudor on the podcast. He's definitely an amazing entrepreneur, but he is also a thinker, a sort of philosopher. I think we barely talked really about archivists, but it was more about way of approaching things and way of approaching life and creativity. So it was really nice talking to him, and it was great meeting him. So I hope you're going to enjoy our conversation and the rest of the podcast. And before we start, I want to remind you that also if you like our work, the way to support us for free is just to click the links below and maybe follow us on Instagram or LinkedIn, Facebook. So Instagram is at TCI Podcast and Facebook and LinkedIn are the Creative Insider pages. So thank you and enjoy the conversation.
The whole world stops just like that. The whole world stops just like that.
Hello, Tudor. How are you doing, man?
Hi, Georgi. Very well, my friend. Enjoying the sun beyond the clouds today.
Yeah, we have actually finally, after like 3 months of clouds, a little bit of sun here in Frankfurt too. Uh, so
Congratulations.
so it's nice to see. It's finally the sun has come. You're the second guest of my podcast from Romania, and I'm always happy to have people from that area because, as you might know, I'm born in Bulgaria. I lived there until I was 7, 8, something like that, and then I moved to Italy. And in Italy, I had also lots of Romanian friends, so I have a lot of connections with Romania somehow. So it's cool
That's
to have
awesome. That's
to have you
awesome,
on the pod.
brother. Thanks for
Yeah,
inviting me. It's an honor. It's a pleasure.
yeah,
Even if we come in second,
yeah. Well,
it's good enough.
yeah,
It's good enough for me.
good enough. Well, I have also to I had to interview someone that was easier to get to you. You're the hardest.
Don't do that, man. He's gonna be upset.
Joking. That's all a
No, we're
joke.
joking. We're joking, dude.
So no, but that was like one thing pulls the other because through the podcast I did with Lucian, it was a very cool podcast. I had a lot of fun talking to him. We connected, and then I told her, "Why not? It's interesting to know more about more people from Romania and more creatives from there." And also was funny because in the beginning I didn't know what exactly your office do, and then I figured out that you did the images of a project which is currently being built, and I did the master thesis on that topic as an alternative project. So it was like so funny to talk to the images that to the guy who did the images, which I watched maybe for like months while I was.
Yeah, yeah, that's a coincidence. It's nice when, you find someone who connected with the project, with the work, whoever did something previous to the what they were doing. There was also a project at some point we did for a major client. And at some point there was a guy on Instagram, and he was saying, I worked on that image. I'm the reason why there's an aerial shot that you used, and I did the original images, and then you took over and you just made an update. I was like, yeah, this is how it works. He used to work for the architect, and it was really nice to know the guy and appreciate the stuff that he had done. He had set up the views and all that, so we just took over and did the not so heavy lifting in the end.
Well, that's also part of the job. I'm curious to know about your background because we don't know each other. So with every guest, I start from the beginning. I'm
Yeah,
curious
sure.
when in your life, I guess you're an architect
Yes, I
because
am. I
most
am.
most, most of the people in the business are from that with that background. Was there a moment in your life or someone in your family that drive you towards architecture, or how did that happen?
For sure, for sure. My parents are architects. Um, their brother and sister. So my dad has a brother who's an architect. My mother has a sister who's an architect. So it was pretty obvious that at least one in the family would end up being an architect and going for that road. And it was me in the family. My sister's a psychologist. But she trained to get into the architecture school for like a year and a half, and she decided last minute it wasn't for her, so she took a different path. But yes, I was predetermined. Um, Maybe it was a voluntary thing, but I think the lifestyle, the attitude my parents had, the friends, sort of the parties that was during communist years in Romania when Ceausescu was still in power. So architects were sort of this privileged, not privileged financially or politically in any way. It's quite the opposite, but the open-minded discussions and the information that they actually wanted to have in their lives, and the music, the Beatles and rock and maybe punk, but not so much. Everything created this interesting vibe to what they were about, and I guess that I was attracted to that more than the work itself. It was just something that I wanted to be like, someone that I wanted to be like when I grew up. So it was predetermined for me at a very early age.
Because you're the first one that I know that it's so it has a family so deeply into architecture because that's a lot of architects in the family. Do you think that because you mentioned they were listening this sort of different kind of music and having different kinds of topic, do you think that back in the days, in that period of time, that was their way to sort of have a little bit of a breath of freedom? Because I guess also in what they were designing and what they were doing, they weren't completely free, or how was that? Because it's interesting to me to know someone that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I mean, the way things worked back then, um, of course, the state would impose everything in everything. So lives were pretty much set to be carried out within boundaries. There was control, obviously, secret police, phones were tapped, so everything was like a Big Brother system set in place. And the food was rationalized. You would have to get in line just to get a piece of butter, or meat you would only get once a week or once a month. It was pretty tough. But people were optimistic, and I guess they found ways around this thing. And I found the same in Cuba, where people are quite happy and well fed, and they lead pretty normal lives. You don't see starving children or starving adults. Of course, there's poverty, but they find ways around it, and there's a black market and stuff like that. But life finds ways around these problems, and creatively, people are people, and intellectuals, I believe, have always had a drive. And wherever you look historically, intellectuals were the ones who drove revolutions, who drove creative circles, and they were the ones sometimes involved in politics. So I think it's only normal that that architects among the liberal practices would become this kind of enclave of creativity and people trying to break free from the limitations. So yeah, these are the architects worldwide. Even nowadays, they all consider themselves to be a bit apart from the rest. Uh, I
Yeah,
believe.
this is why I decided. This is also something that I had in the back of my mind when the podcast started. That this is sort of a new way of media, a new form of media where we can spread some message, not only about you know creative process, but also let's see what are the positions about certain topic of architects and other creatives. Because I
Right.
think that nowadays this dialogue, it's a little bit like not that loud. um, we don't tend to take positions, or not that strongly as in the past. I think that it's sort of before the creatives were leading sort of the way, setting the trend. And now there is a trend which is set from whatever the market or the people, and we try to adapt and follow. And yeah, I think I feel this difference a little bit, because before really.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I agree. I agree. But I would say that the word trends before just not that obvious, and not in so large numbers, and not that strong perhaps. But I think you always had limitations. And there's a film that I love by Lars von Trier. It's called Five Obstructions, and you might know it. And it's a film where he invites his former teacher Jürgen Lett, who had created a film called The Perfect Human, or The Perfect Man, and he invites the teacher to redo the film, um, having huge obstructions every time. So these obstructions are so great that the teacher himself is appalled by he can't he has difficulty finding ways to even produce a film with those limitations. One of them is like use only sequences of 1 second, and just produce a short film. And I believe Las Frontier is actually fascinated by limitations and by these boundaries that you need to work with. And I think we're all have to we all have to carry doing what we do within the various boundaries, which are cultural, which are trends, which are market, which are social, or anything. So I think it's probably the same. It's just a mutation on steroids nowadays, and there's a lot of noise also. So you have to be vocal, very vocal about things.
Also, yeah, it's everything more polarized, and I think this is also a thing. And so from the podcast with Lucian, I figure out, like he said, a little bit how people access the university in Romania. Did you study in Romania, and did the fact that you have so many relatives that already are architect help you to prepare for that, or to guide you? Did you have like a homeschool for getting into the architectural university, or was it as hard as for anyone else?
Um, Hard it was. I mean, hard work, definitely. Except for my parents being architects, and I being fascinated with, I don't know, drawing as any child is. Um, I had to take some, some drawing classes before the exam, because without the drawing classes, you cannot pass the exam. And that that took a couple of years. Almost everyone who wants to enter university has to pass through at least a couple of years of training, because the exam is really tough. I mean, you have technical drawing, you have artistic drawing. Um, it's tough, and then you have math. So you also need to have some classes around math if you're not good at math, as I used to be. uh, as I wasn't actually, because I sucked at math and physics and all that stuff. Although anyhow, so it my parents didn't prepare me for that. I had to do it on the side. So that's how we managed to pass the exam. All of us architects in Bucharest.
Yeah, it's similar to what I've heard about Bulgaria, because there we you need to draw very well and to do like a test of math and physics. In Rome, where I started studying, to access the university, I needed to pass like a test with 80 questions, and they were not all related to architecture, because
Wow,
the idea of the Italian system and how you access university is that you have to give opportunity to everyone to get into the university, and you don't like what I liked about Italy is that nobody needs to take extra classes for entering the university, because in countries like Bulgaria, Romania, people like me and you are lucky enough, but there are other people maybe not from the main cities, or
that's right.
which the educational system really, if you're not born a genius somehow,
That's right.
you won't be able to level up your social level. It's going to be hard.
That's a misfortune of these systems, where there's a high entry barrier, and unless your parents invest in you, and I know many people who didn't have the means to do that, or they entered university and then they had to maybe cancel because their parents couldn't afford to pay their schooling fees. I know people like that, and it's unfair. And I was lucky, with having parents who could afford this, and then I was lucky to go study in Switzerland, and I was lucky to go study in the Netherlands with scholarship, definitely. Along the Switzerland was my second year. Eindhoven was my fifth year. I always came back after these years for some reason. But without the support of my parents, I wouldn't have been able to go there and stay there. Even if like, I mean, Switzerland and both Switzerland and Netherlands require guarantees. So you need to have money placed into an account that guarantees that you have the means to support yourself while you're there. And I remember when I was in Switzerland, my parents needed to have an account in US dollar, which was pretty um, hard to have, but back then in '98. And my father had a friend who was some president at Citibank, and that guy helped my dad. So they were colleagues in this MBA, executive MBA that they took together, and that's how they knew each other. My dad's not a bank CEO or anything, so he he was able to open an account and I don't know, have some money put in there so I could just go study. So
So you,
yeah,
so you,
it's not fair in my view, and the system still runs, unfortunately.
Yes, it's something that it's like very clear to me as someone that's, because I'm in a this sort of very weird situation where I'm Bulgarian, but I have lived most of my time abroad, and you can see with distance the whole situation, the whole picture, and you have also like you can compare with countries like, I mean, Italy is not the most advanced in sort of social politics country in Europe or in the world. But and also, for example, in Italy, there is a proportional system of the fees of the university, which means like if your parents are like architect and they earn more than somebody that's whose parents are maybe I don't know, working on a construction place or earning less money, then you'll pay less university. So that even even if you're coming from a or not, for example, we had some Albanian guys at our university which just came to study, and they didn't have anything like really on their own, so they didn't pay anything for university, which for me was a pretty good system. And but you said you did 1 year in Romania and then you went to Switzerland with some exchange program, or how did that work?
That worked. That was supposed to be a full scholarship for the entire, I don't know, 5 years of university. It was the University of Mario Botta in Mendrisio, the Accademia di Architettura di Mendrisio. You might know it. And the thing is, the place was quite small, so it was just their third year. Of course, they had students, maybe 300 or something students per year. So the little village of 7,000 inhabitants was, you know, getting more population. But I guess the biggest problem for me was coming from a large city where, you had stuff and people and friends and all of that, to a very small village, where every shop would be closed by 6 p.m., and there was not much you could do. And I was limited by my scholarship, which I mostly entirely paid rent and food with. So there was not much freedom for me. I was just my second year, so I think it's probably the first time I was depressed in ever, like, in my life. So it wasn't a very bad thing, but at the end of the first year, I decided I would rather go get back and be with, with people, with family and people and friends, than carry on down there. So for some people, that I mean, there was another Romanian friend of mine who's still there, and he's working in Mendrisio. He has his own company there. He came from a smaller town somewhere in Romania, and he wasn't bothered at all by the silence and by the lack of, action, like I was. So it was just, I think, just this kind of pressure, and my mental health, I guess, was more important than the benefits. Benefits were huge. I mean, you had all the teachers. You had Peter Zumthor. You had um, you know amazing names in architecture and architecture history, people who wrote architecture books. But it wasn't enough for me. I was a child still.
Well, I don't know. I always like, for example, because I've seen many people achieving great things even without attending such a university classes or universities at all. I think that it's more like it's what the university gives you as infrastructure, what is the main thing. Because, for example, I came to Frankfurt as an Erasmus student, and here the university, it's a Fachhochschule, which means it's applied sciences. So it's in Germany, you have university and these applied sciences schools, which are supposed to be like one level lower than university. but I was a guy who didn't like so much theory. I like, designing, and we had like laser cutters, a whole workshop where you can build models. You had
Right.
a room where you
Exactly.
can work 24 hours with a card, and you had your own spot with shop for materials right next to the university. So I think that I mentioned that also in one of the past podcasts, because one guy went to the Stadelschule here in Frankfurt, which is sort of the AA of Germany.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you're lazy and if you don't like what you're doing, even if your teacher is, I don't know, the best architect ever existed, you won't be good. So I think, and also I think it's very
That's
important
so
to,
true. So true.
yeah, the life balance also, like if you don't enjoy your life while you're studying with Peter Zumthor or whoever, it's not the best. But so you were supposed to be there for a longer time, but you went back.
I came back, and I think my decision was influenced by one of the other Romanian friends, who's also very, very good. But I think he had a girlfriend here, and he didn't want to let her go. He couldn't be there forever, so he said, "Yeah, I'm going back no matter what." I was like, "Well, if you're going back, I'm going back, because I'm totally not happy down here." So the upside was that during that year, I really understood the importance of conceptual thinking and of self study, of access to information. As you said, you had access to all these tools and workshops and magazines and books. And I really understood that if you know what you're after, and the fact that the design is not a copy, but it must be backed up by, a theoretical approach, by a construction, whether it's, it's physical, it's aesthetic, it's backed up by research. That is the main takeaway that I had during that year, with all these people, amazing people around me, and the access to the resources that they had. So, as you said, being lazy doesn't get you anywhere if you don't put in the work, and not even the best schools can upgrade you if you don't want to be upgraded. So you have to take it within your hands and decide what you're going to do. I mean, you're back then in 98, 99, we had to, I don't know, find magazines, buy them online, because, some universities, and especially the one in Bucharest, wasn't that full of these up-to-date magazines and stuff like that. So the internet wasn't what it is. There were no, no free tutorials on architecture. I think there's barely any right now. Architecture is like so ethereal. Nobody teaches architecture on YouTube. But you get lectures and stuff. And I remember I used to go to lectures, and even in my fifth year, I used to go to the Berlage Institute in Rotterdam. That was, Berlage is one of the top post-grad schools, very, very expensive. And it took many, many years for them to eventually decide to upload their lectures online for free, because you'd have to pay to get there and see the lectures. But the mindset was so different, and you really needed to pay heavy dollar, as they say, for information, and that's pretty sad. But that's how it was.
But I think that nowadays is on the contrary, because a few years ago I have a friend who is teaching some classes at the university here in Frankfurt. So I went to the presentation of the projects of the students. They were like first year students, and or second year, something like that. And due to the fact that now you have everything online, like imagine like every single person you think about, if you Google them and you go on YouTube, for example, you'll find lectures from the AA, from Harvard, from, like, you could really have on right away, or even on your phone, the lecture of the high, the best of the best. And these guys, when they presented their project, and I suggested them like to look at this thing and that other thing, online, because myself, I was very obsessed with doing my projects. Like and I wanted to do the best possible project. I would reverse engineer also like the drawings, like take the colors, the trees, the stuff like that. And I would do sort of researches online, and then I'll be like, okay, this guy, I would go on Google Maps, for example, and search for
Mhm.
architects in Denmark, and then I would go through all the websites and find them on YouTube and stuff like that. And nowadays there is not so much curiosity because there is abundance of, I think, of information, and people are like, whatever, like it's there,
It's
I
the
can
flip side. The flip
yeah,
side of too much information.
yeah, and
But
yeah.
I think we need to find focus, and I don't know who's responsible for finding, for giving these people focus. Um, I know that I had to upgrade my central core database. I was aware, most of the time I was aware I didn't know enough, and probably that's one of my traits. I'm very very curious all the time. So probably for me now it's the best time because there's so much I didn't have when I grew up, and I find myself during weekends or in evenings just going through video after video at 2x speed just to get more information. And my books, I listen to them at 2x or even more if possible, um, because I'm just discovering, lectures that I knew existed or didn't know existed that kind of inspire me. And these are architecture related stuff. Of course, Archviz and all that is also there, but architecture, film, photography, photographers talking about their work. Rem Koolhaas speaking 5 years ago about I don't know, about the rural aspects of the world, and he's like super super um, present with the same discourse today. I mean, he's super relevant. Um, there's definitely too much information, but I guess it's just a way of curating that you need to be aware of. You have to be a curator of your information to craft who you want to become.
That's exactly right. And you mentioned you went to the Netherlands. What happened? Because you were 1 year in Switzerland, then you went back to Romania for how long? I don't know.
I think for 2, 3, 4, something like 3 or 4 years. And my
But you
fifth
can
year
study.
was, yeah,
You,
I studied in Romania. I was also lucky to have a teacher who's super super cool. He's called Dorin Stefan, um, and he's one of the cooler architects and fresh, open-minded people that work around here. And it was really cool. I mean, doing the projects along those years was a pleasure because we had to do our research and support all the decisions that we were making. At least that's what I was doing. And a few friends of mine that I was really close with, they were also into research and finding new ways of doing things. Of course, there were people around us who were happy with copying some visualization style and some picture in a magazine. And for us, it was just not the way. Not that I'm a great architect now, because I'm obviously incompetent after so many years of doing just Archviz. But it was my greatest love in life, architecture, I would say.
and at what point you decided to go to the Netherlands?
They had these opportunities almost every year, and I remember I applied to go to Paris once, and I got the scholarship. I think it was my fourth year, or my third or fourth year. But the Paris La Seine University that I had gotten into for a year, I looked it up. Some friends told me it's not that good. Probably I shouldn't have listened to them, um, and I should have just gone for it. But I decided to wait. So in my fifth year, there was another opportunity for another scholarship, and it was just an exam of I think English language, and it was like obvious. It was so easy for me. So I got this shot and I took it, and I really appreciated it. I mean, it was once again an eye-opening experience, realizing that how advanced and how open and how um, I don't know, open, I would say, people were towards students, how the whole mindset was fully um, rooted in other values than the local ones. Can't say how much it means for anyone to grab the opportunity of studying in a different school. It just changes you, and it rewires, it repoints you in life. I think it's not about spending the rest of your life in, I don't know, wherever you want to go in France or whatnot. It's just personal growth, and it's intellectual growth. It's assuming and acknowledging the fact that you cannot cheat on your exams like a local like everyone does. It's a culture of cheating in Romania, I believe. If you haven't studied, you just write things down on a small piece of paper and you just pass the exam. Up
In
there is there's no such thing.
in Italy and Bulgaria, it's the same way. You do whatever you need to do.
Yeah, yeah, I did it myself, but I don't know. If I'm not good at math, I just gotta get to the end of this, the end of university, so I can do what I like, and then you'll get specialists, you'll get engineers, you'll get other smarter people than you who are gonna help out. And I did that. I did design for a few years. I worked throughout university, and even after for 1 year before I opened the first studio, Archviz studio. But these schools were just about uh, being truly involved in the matters that were getting studied, and not having you cheat on the stupid exam, because teaching was real, better in my view.
Yeah, and today it's also very easy to get to study somewhere else because now Bulgaria and Romania are also part of the EU, and a lot of countries are part of
Absolutely.
the EU. So you have this whole Erasmus program, and it's even better because people which are coming from countries like Bulgaria or Romania get even more money per month, like a sort of a small salary where you can go really cover your expenses, stay there for a year. And I think a part of the what you're going to learn there, really, if you're someone that has lived mostly in your own country and without having long experiences abroad, it's going to open your mentality a lot, and you're going to discover how connected people are around the globe. Because for example, when I
Yeah.
arrived here, there were like people not only from Germany, but there were people from the US, from Korea, from China, from Spain, from Finland, from Denmark, from Italy, so many different, from Spain, from Mexico. And you understand that people can be good people or jerks no matter what skin is their, like what is the color of their skin, what is their culture, what is their religion. And I think it's something very open minded, and like I think in a union like the EU, that should be mandatory and should be more like supported economically, so that more and more
Yeah,
people
man, I think you're
take.
you're absolutely right. You should do an exchange. at some point. And it's not just for the mind and for the, for the soul, for friends, but you also get a network that later in life you may want to appreciate. If even if you just globetrot around and you can meet some of your ex university friends or colleagues. You have friends in Italy, you have friends in France. These people, eventually will create architecture and will work, and they will have their own offices, or they will work for someone, and this becomes your network. And I'm not saying that it's an absolute like source of leads for someone who goes to school and makes friends, but it kind of matters. It matters. And exchanging and going abroad just exposes you to other people who can connect you to other people. And these studios and wherever I'm looking, I mean, I'm not just talking about the Romanian studios that are doing Archviz that, and working internationally, but other people. Most of them have just changed schools, or they have worked for international studios abroad, and that's where they connected to people who later in life just brought them leads, or friends. Referrals from friends are far more potent than any cold email or cold call you would try to do as a during your sales process, which how it works.
Yeah, I've said that already in the past, that I see these exchange programs like the modern way of serving. Before, you were used to serve in the army or social service. Nowadays, they should do like 1 year where you gone somewhere for 1 year. You pick up a country or whatever, or like even if it's a similar country to yours, different one, you go there for a year. It's not that bad as serving in the military. You learn also some side things like cooking for yourself, cleaning yourself, and stuff like that. And then you get this new mindset, which it will be benefit the whole economy and the social life, I think, inside a melting pot of cultures like the EU. But you mentioned you opened your first office after university. How did you transition from university to being a professional? Did you start in Romania or did you start somewhere else?
So the thing with architecture is, an architect needs to be skilled at. He needs to have presentation skills. I took a class in Eindhoven called presentation skills or something like that, and it was about not just it wasn't about rendering or anything. It was just about communicating your ideas. And until then, I hadn't. I mean, I had realized it was important to be a pro at it, but it then became quite clear to me that the way I was pushing visualization into my projects, and this was also due to a friend of mine who was very skilled at this stuff, and we were kind of learning together. And since we were good at it and we had done work along the university for ourselves and for other people, I even had created some images for my dad. He's an architect, obviously, so he kind of needed help on some things. So it became obvious that after a while, after getting small commissions and doing renderings for others, this was a powerful tool that could become a business. So we made a very conscious decision to just quit our jobs that we had. And my friend was he had been working for serious architecture studios for quite a lot of years before he took the leap. And I used to do the same, but there was one shot after my first year of really being full time employed, not after I finished studying. when there was this opportunity to work on a real estate project, large scale residential project. Also came this opportunity came from a friend of my sister. She pushed this project. She said like, "Can you guys do this? Because I know your sister told me you're doing renderings and stuff like that. Let's talk. Let me know what you think." And this she was working for Colliers, the real estate consultancy, and then most of the projects that they did with their clients that they consulted for, they passed through our hands. So we were pretty lucky to start, big in a way. Quality of the work, we kept on pushing it and pushing it, and of course, eventually it turned into a business really quickly. And also, everything that followed was around building a business and whatever followed after that.
But
That was the beginning.
this first studio was already towards archivist, not like architecture.
We had a couple of streams, let's call them. We mainly got together to create to do Archviz, and we did that. In parallel, we would also take occasional design commissions, architecture design, classical architectural design commissions. My friend and his wife, I think they were more into that than I was. So we occasionally were working on design projects. Eventually, I decided to completely drop that line because I couldn't do everything, and I realized I didn't have the skill and the knowledge, because I wasn't doing it full time, and my main focus was on Archviz, in fact. And that went on for like 7 years till we decided to separate and do it on our own. We went through the first recession together. You know, we switched from real estate to architecture design firms, and that's when we kind of went global. We went out of the local market into the global market with architecture design studios.
Did somehow help you the fact that you come from a family of architects to get these first leads? Because in the architectural field and industry, it's always important, to have like references in. By that I mean like a portfolio where you show projects that are built or have been done, and I mean, coming from a family which is already has done something, for sure it made you more legit, or you think that there was anything connected with that in the beginning?
I don't think there was much around that because the leads came from me going in doing architecture. I mean, going to architecture school, being involved with visualization across all my projects and other people's projects. And me and my partner, we both had a portfolio that showed that there was some skill in there. And the family just became a side story to that. It was, I think, it was just the work that eventually put us on the map, and the fact that we had to, we there was, as I said, there wasn't much information. There weren't many tutorials. There was nothing, almost just other studios across the planet that were trying to do great work, and we were looking up to those and seeing how we could push the envelope. And I think that became our identity and what kind of drew people to us in a way.
But when was your first so to say moment where you figured out more about archivists in a digital way and started wrapping in your mind around the idea of becoming specialize in that? Was that a sort of gradually came through your experience, or and when did you discover it? Because I think early 2000, was it already established very much as a business, or?
So the actual business started in 2006. We didn't have a name or an identity or anything before then. For personally, for me, I think since I was drawn to drawing, um, and I loved drawing. I wasn't that good as others. I mean, there were other people, friends, and colleagues who were natively endowed, in drawing. They had the eye and the hand. I had to try hard, and I realized that by copying photographs, architecture photography, I found out how things worked, how shadows work, reflections, and how materials behave and stuff like that. So it was pretty early on that I realized that the computer. It was actually in my second year. I had a computer in my home, but it just wasn't good enough. So seeing renderings being done, and of course there was no V-Ray back then. So when we found V-Ray, we were like, mind blown. We were using Brazil for a while. Brazil was so slow. You would render images by 800 by 600 pixels in 48 hours. That was the speed. So you had to improvise. You had to use Photoshop maybe to simulate things, to add color, to add radiosity and stuff like that. So even before then, we would simulate a GI with omnis in the scene, in the 3D scene. So it was fascinating to find ways to hack the computer to look like a to make the image look like a rendering, like a proper GI radiosity and all of these technical terms to make it look like a pro image. And I think it was just one of these obstructions that got us closer and to the goals that we were after. And it was the difficulty, I think, that not the easy path, but the hard path, that made us persevere, I think.
And was it 2006 when it was already Panopticon, the name? Or
No, 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 no. That was another name. Panopticon started in 2013-14. Um, it's the name is due to my fascination toward the early writings of Rem Koolhaas and his studies around the Panopticon prison in Arnhem, I think, if I'm not mistaken. He had a project he had done very early in his career, and the whole idea of how he would flip certain concepts of intro versus outro. He had these he had this wall of, I mean, he had a set of bathrooms that were missing a wall, so all the private actions that were going on in the bathrooms were flipped to the other side. This is not in the Arnhem prison, this is in the Exodus project. So it's a bunch of projects and critical thinking behind these projects that really fascinated me when I was studying, and I ended up, saying that I'd really like to to brand my thing with something that's so deep and meaningful, and maybe it's a promise to find meaning later on.
and that started when you split from your former partner, if I
That's
count
right.
correctly.
That's right. That's right. I had to rebuild the client base. I was lucky again to be referred by friends to various studios, and yeah, it was. It's great to be in a team where people can do one. does 50% of the work, the other one does 50% of the work. Or in other cases, people are not the same, don't have the same training, and they can complete each other by covering various parts of the business. We were both architects, so we had to kind of cope just by doing a lot of work together. Um, but I think it's important for people to understand that the a business is not just doing ArchViz. It's much more than that. And you know, if you approach the business with a business mindset, then you have a much bigger chance to make it and to not suffer along the way, as most of us did.
What do you
Um,
mean by with a business mindset? Like more getting jobs which you wouldn't do anyways, like to get the money, or what is the approach you mean, like business approach?
Um, Business approach means understanding that you need to be able to scale your skills, to find people that are good at what you're doing, but also people that are better than you. Um, Understand that there must be a marketing and sales process. The growth mindset is really important, and that's I think that's the highest barrier to cross in our field, because we're so focused on the work and on the quality and on the passion and all the discovery that we need to make, that we most of the time forget what it that we kind of need to see this as a business also. If you want to cross the boutique studio kind of size and format, some people don't want to cross that. I know people who are really happy, just doing work on their own or with a friend or two, and they just don't want to go past that. But then you realize the I don't know, the size of the project. After a while, it becomes inaccessible for you, or complexity, or the amount of feedback that you're getting. The expectations are so high that you must think differently. But
Yeah,
I'm not. This is just one piece of advice I have for people. It's hard to look outside of your mind, but I think it's really important for whoever enters the field to understand this is a very serious game. It's very expensive. You need to pay for everything, for the licenses. You need to pay your people well. You need to create an environment that's pleasant and it's not exploiting people like all the architecture studios do. If you want to be in the right place, in the right mind.
yeah, I think that's very like this is something recurring that I hear from entrepreneurs, and I like to read biographies of I like to read biographies in general because they're like about someone that has done something. And I read, for example, the biography of Jack Ma, the guy that
Yeah.
allegedly is still alive and runs Alibaba, or it's disappeared anyways. And he says like first is the client, second are the employees, and third are the shareholders. So like you need to care of your clients, but you need to take care also of your employees, because they are the guys who are like sort of pulling the whole thing forward. And a lot of a lot of architects which are having their own firms or bigger studios, they're like we need to make happy the client no matter what it takes. And if you have constantly people coming and going from your firm, it's also expensive for you, because you need to make them first adapt to your workflow, and then and yeah, educate them, sort of, I guess, because when you start a new job, it's not always like clack, take a piece off and put another.
Yeah,
So
so true, so true. I can give you an example. I mean, thinking when to push back the request of a client is the topic for. It has been the topic for architects and mostly visualizers. So if you check out the videos that are being put out lately, everybody talks about when do you say no? And it after a while becomes quite clear that the happiness of whoever's making that image or that film or whatever deliverable you're creating, or just a mindset or a design, right? You can design as a visualizer. You're doing design, concept design, but it's still design. So whoever's making that should be happy. If the way the client treats the work that he's doing with you, or treats you eventually, I mean, it's not personal. It's almost never personal. But the way you let them treat you impacts the happiness and the mindset of whoever works for you and with you. So I think it's you have to make a decision: make the client happy or make your people happy. And I would guess that my conclusion, will be make our people happy and start from there. Because, as you said, if people go, you're left with nothing. I can still do images, but I can do one image, not 10, not five. I can do one, and it doesn't help me much. Helps me, get through the month. But I think it's really important for us to understand that the client, you need to create a system where the client is happy and comfortable, but with the right boundaries, that allow you to be calm. You allow you to be stress free most of the time. Allow you to go home at 6. Allow you to be doing your family stuff during weekends. This is a rule. I mean, we work by these rules. The happiness factor is still in progress, but at least the freedom to go home after the work is done is there. I mean, we there's no exception, almost no exception for clients to use us after the schedule is done and during weekends. And I see this happening. I don't see this happening for architecture studios at all. These are all exploiting machines, uh, who just shred people and just spit them away if they don't cope. It's
Well, I don't know if you're talking about the Romanian scene here in Germany. It's depends. Like it depends really
Yeah, it depends.
where you land.
Wouldn't be so general
Yeah, where you land.
about it.
But yeah, it's it's a very large topic. I have never been on your side, so like I'm still pretty fresh in the field because I work full time only now. I think 4 years, something like that. So I have experience as as an employee, but never had my own business, never had a team to lead. So I cannot say from your perspective. From my perspective, is sometimes as an employee you feel frustrated because your work, it's some reflection of a decision that you haven't taken. Like if you take a project which has a crazy deadline and you bring it on my table, I didn't have the opportunity to tell you, dude, this is like impossible to do what you're asking me to do now. And this is something that's a little, you have to be lucky to have the right boss who takes the right decisions. And yeah, and I say
Right.
always that if you have to do a work for what is apparently a lot of money, but to do this job you need to work a lot of hours, your income is also not more because you just work more hours and spread among the hours you work, you get paid the same, so you
Yes.
can say to your
Yes.
client like, yes, look, I would love to do the work for you, but this is how we could do it. If that's okay with you, good. If not, uh, we're we'll be happy to hear from you from something else. How big is your team now in Romania?
We are seven souls, seven
Seven.
happy souls
And do you
right
have
now.
other partners now, or you are basically the manager of the?
No, no, no. I'm the founder and the director, let's call
Yeah.
it, or whatever. And the it's 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 me powered by, we are powered by these amazing people, um, rowing at the same boat. That's called Panopticon, and I'm doing my best to, to handle all these, to juggle all these balls, like, happiness of for everybody, happiness of the client, money, sales, between brackets, because there's almost no sales process going on, managing our income, investing. It's super cool. It's super cool. I mean, I'm so passionate about these things. It's incredible how I never got bored.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it feels very good when you do something on your own, where you're in charge of everything of the whole process. For example, I do this small podcast, and all everything which it's regarding it. It's so much fun, and it makes you want to put the extra hour. You always very self-critical. You want to do better. You want to. It's sort of like a race against yourself, and
I know what you mean.
yeah, it's like damn, I wanted, if I don't know if for everyone it's like this. I guess that everyone who is slightly motivated to do something uh, has this spirit, this core, that it's yes, to improve yourself every day, and push yourself. I've said many times I have this tendency to be very hard on myself, which I have to balance a little.
Yeah, my friend, I know what you mean. So am I.
Like, it happens to me, for example, I recorded a podcast where I didn't uh, talk really smartly on the podcast, or the audio was very bad, and I'm like, fuck you, motherfucker, why did you do that so bad? It's like, you've been doing this now 30 times and didn't manage to do it better. And then I'm like, would go through YouTube videos to check out how to do it better, or yeah, or stuff like that. And
Just next time, grab a glass of wine. Have the person that you're interviewing grab another glass of wine, and you're gonna be so smooth, no
yes,
problem at all. Just having a good time, because this is what it's all about, isn't it? I mean, who cares about a little stutter?
yeah,
We're human.
yes, true. I do now. We're lucky enough that we're doing this on the weekend, but sometimes I do it after works during the week, because some people, as consider this work, and they would be like, I'm not doing anything on the weekend, and I should drink a coffee or Red Bull before, rather than a wine, because so I get a little bit more pumped up. uh, that would be an option.
Those things stress the heck out of me. If I have coffee, fuck. I am pumped but stressed. I become so stressed. Even tea kind of stresses me.
Yeah,
I'd rather
really.
be I'd rather be calm than pumped for these things, or for anything for that matter.
Yeah.
Um, it's funny how this podcast software is called Zendesk. That's exactly what I'm trying to find in life. The Zen, the full life Zen style during work, during sleep, during free time, whatever, during a meeting. Let us all be calm and composed, and how do we do that? That's the greatest mystery.
I think that's why we all try to figure out and to do. and it's balance is, I think balance and being aware of yourself are the two most important skills to learn in life, and always work on that, because um, I am also working on that, because I tend to be like too much into leaning into one side or the other and balancing stuff, and sometimes as you're not aware of what is going on also, like why you're doing this or why you're doing that. And this is what I work on constantly, because it's hard.
Yeah, I know what you mean. The thing is what you were saying earlier, that being kind of leading a team, or having a few people around you, and being responsible for their well-being eventually. That's quite, it's quite a responsibility. I mean, some people tend to take it lightly and say, whatever, we don't have enough money to pay the wages or stuff like that. That's really hardcore. And every decision, every sentence that you put out, everything matters. And it's really important for us as founders, or team leaders, let's say, to be aware of these things. And we're not perfect. If if you talk to someone and you're saying stuff in a certain way, and you can be mad, you can be sad, you can be, whatever life and clients make you feel like, this gets passed on. And I think happiness, in a way, that's the greatest challenge in this in any work. I think it's about making, or at least ensuring, that people can be happy. If they chose not to be, then it's their problem. But that's the greatest challenge for me. I would say, running a studio. How do we, as a collective, be remain curious? How do we push ourselves to find things out? Um, how do we discover things together? How do we create, a happy place where we work?
I From our conversation, in my opinion, I could feel that you're very, you are also a lot into practice, but also a lot into theory. And from your background in architecture and what you have told me, you like to, listen to presentations, to books, to read. I'm curious, did you read some literature on how to lead a team, or how to run a business somehow, like some, or you figure it out along the process? Because I've spoken on the podcast already with, for example, Eric, who is the founder of Luxigon. And when I asked him this question, he's like, "No, you just do, and then
Fucking do it.
fuck reading, you just start doing it." But he maybe is a natural, so like, because also he said similar stuff like you did about the team. So I'm wondering, is it in your case also some of your natural sides to be compassionate towards your team and people who work for you, or did you read also about these topics?
I think, for me, it started off with my own life, since architecture is about working nights and weekends. So it really started with drawing, and the classes that we were taking were during weekends, and then you had so many assignments to do, to complete by the next week or month, that you had to spend nights and nights and nights doing them. And this was pre-university. Then university, the same, projects and stuff, drinking, 2 bottles of Coke in a day with peanuts or whatnot. So it was just a continuous stream of identical approach to work, and everybody was doing it. So I thought, if I have a business, then the business must run on different in different terms, because I knew I would get burned out, and I wouldn't want the people that work with me to feel the same, despair at the end of the week, that this is the norm and you have to do things this way. So it was a responsible decision to make the switch. And then maybe, I did read stuff. I looked stuff up on leadership, maybe Simon Sinek, for instance. But most of the books that I started, I don't get to finish. I have so many that I'm checking out, that I think, I try to imagine why I don't finish books. It's about time, most of the time. Then it's about the thing that probably I get the idea from just reading like a third of the book, and then I just get my takeaways out of that, third, or 20 pages, or 50 or 100 pages. I like getting new information. One other thing that I did, I got a business coach, a couple of years back, who brought a lot of insight onto how the business seems to be running, and what things I could do to improve, and to make it run better. And most of that had to do with standardizing certain things, parametrizing, if I can uh, say it like that, other things, um, getting these meetings between ourselves in here, to work differently, to involve people. But the being compassionate is not something you learn. I you know it must be within you, or you must understand that without compassion, there's no cohesion. There's nothing. People just stop caring, because
Yeah,
there's burnout, there's boredom, and people would eventually get there one way or another. Just repeating the same work year after year, they would definitely be bored at some point. So how do you get them interested? If you're pushing them so hard that their teeth will drop, it's just not gonna happen. So if the question was around books, yeah, there are some books like Creativity Inc. is a very interesting piece of writing around this thing. Um, it's up to each of us to pick up the um, the right lessons. There is one that I want to read, absolutely want to read. It's called the Organization Reinvented, or the Reinvented Organization, by Laloux. I think it's Frédéric Laloux, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just gonna look it up. And it is a book that discusses all the aspects of organizations, and um, classifies them by structure and by the way they work, and then gives you tips, very, very, precise and accurate tips on how you can restructure things to make things better. That's probably one of the best books I haven't read yet, but I would highly recommend it.
I'm currently reading, and it's because when I read some books that are very helpful, in my opinion, I take notes, so I read them for a longer time, to take my notes while reading. Very good book I can suggest you. It's called Super Thinking. Like the cover of the read them in English, so the English version cover looks a little bit
Oh,
cheesy.
cool. Mental models. I love
Yeah,
that.
and they have like you go through all these mental models and all these things to analyze stuff, and it's so interesting because this is what I meant like with awareness, because those books on different topics, another one, it's Principles from Ray Dalio. Like
Yeah, I have it.
I like books that a lot of the things you read there like are pretty obvious, but it's sort of unconsciously obvious. Or another one that I read and I really loved is uh, Leadership Strategy and Tactics Field Manual from Jocko Willing. I don't
Hmm.
know if you know Jocko. He has
No.
also podcasts about he's a former Navy SEAL, and he has led the SEAL Team 6 task force Bruiser in Ramadi, which was like the toughest city in Iraq. And he
I know
always
Jocko. I know Jocko. Didn't he have a, yeah, extreme ownership? That's the one that I got and I started, and I thought it was a bit too military-ish for
uh,
me.
he,
But
well,
this
this,
sounds better.
this field manual is also like there are a lot of stories from his military years, but it's sort of like um yeah, there are a lot of like rules that are taken from the military and then he applies them into life, and or business, or like when to how to work within a team. And it's interesting because, for example, this extreme ownership made me think about something really stupid which happened in my life. For example, when I was a kid and I would do something disappointing, my mom would never tell me like, "I'm so disappointed of you." She would say something like, um, "Damn it, why did it happen? I must haven't guide you enough, or I must haven't like maybe I didn't do the right job with you to explain why is this wrong." And when she would say that, I would feel way worse because I would be like, "No, you did. I'm like
Mm.
the wrong one." So, and this is something that happens in your life and you're not aware where it happens. But when then you read, you think, "Oh yeah, that was extreme ownership because she didn't tell me you disappointed me." I'm like, because if you go to someone and tell like you did that, then they would fire me
Yeah.
up. But if
Yes.
you say like,
That's
"I must be
very
wrong,"
powerful.
yeah. So it's and this is a stupid example that's nothing to do with military. It's like my mom telling me I must have done something wrong if you did this, and there was one little thing that when I was
But
thinking.
how did you conclude that you would have felt better if she had told you that you're to blame, or
No, I wouldn't.
I don't know, someone else is to blame?
No, I wouldn't feel better, but I would have reacted differently. Like
Hmm.
because the fact that if somebody comes and puts accusation on you, you tend to be like, no, no, like you are
You get
wrong.
defensive.
Yeah, and sometimes also, I don't know, sometimes we tend to a lot of times to complain about others, but then you have to take this thing personally and be like, I don't know, if my employee didn't do the right thing, I must have and explain enough. Or of course you always need to know like where is the limit. Like there are some times where you say, okay, I've tried really everything, it is what it is. But for example, I do that a lot, at home with other things, like I don't know, in my relationship. Sometimes when I think like, uh, why this is done this way, I think, okay, I decided to be with this partner, with this girl, so I have to accept the way she is because I picked the decision. So it is what it is. And then you feel a little bit like relaxed, not like so like, you avoid a lot of these pointless discussions even in your like daily life.
I think there's a great quality to being an overthinker, and to being empathetical with people around you. You have to be careful not to overdo it, not to over blame yourself for things.
No.
But that's where we need to find balance between how much is our responsibility and how much is the responsibility of others. Because if you set the ground rules for something, and the ground rules are being ignored by someone who knows they should
Yeah,
be
yeah.
going by those rules. I mean, they can be in your relationship, in the office, I don't know, wherever on the street, then this is one thing. I mean, extreme ownership around things that you think you're responsible for. Then there's the tone and the voice in which you express these things, and that's really important. And sometimes it's disconnected from the actual thing. I mean, voicing these ideas and the way you talk to people, that's another huge topic. And of course, you can blame yourself or say I don't care in your mind, but the way you create this canvas of leadership or comfort or um, conversation, that's a totally different skill that we must learn, and it's not native to anyone. I'm afraid
Yeah,
we definitely must train ourselves
it,
in
it
that direction.
it's so funny that you're mentioning this because you have started reading this book, Extreme Ownership, and then there was the first book, and they did a second book which is called The Economy of Leadership or something like that, which they were saying like, okay, guys, these things that we explained you in the first books, you need to balance them because there is always a dichotomy. And then they did the third book, which is for me, it's because I listened just the first two, I think, in audio form. And the third book is really like a field manual, which is like really with happen like for different occasions of your daily life, like some scenarios or stuff like that. Because it's of course with everything it's the dichotomy, like you have to balance it. What we were saying before, like if you're like too harsh towards yourself, it will be bad. If you're detached, like you said, how do you say stuff? They say you need to say stuff detached. Like if I come to you with some issue, I wouldn't be like blaming you, I should be like calm. But if you're too calm, then people don't take you seriously. And with everything, you need to find the like sweet spot where you like know where to push, where to pull, and
Everything we do is wrong.
yeah.
You have to be careful because whatever you do is wrong, my man.
But
We gotta go to school for that.
yeah, and when
Nah, it's not that bad. It's not that bad.
no, no. And when you started the first time when you quit your job and when you started your first business as a like with your partner, um did you feel some sort of like um I don't know, maybe fear, because it's like, general acceptance is that you have a job and have a sure income monthly or whatever. And was it for you stressful, or you were like still very young and you were like more like, I'm gonna just jump and whatever?
Mm, I don't remember any fear. I don't have a very, very detailed memory of, historically of events in my life, but I just remember being so excited that we could do something like that. And we just, at least I was, exhilaratingly happy that we were creating this business of ours. And I remember being just um, there was a lot of work coming in, so there was no thought. Maybe there were some moments when you would finish up a project and you didn't know whether you would pick up another one or stuff like that. This always happens. But no, I don't think there was any fear. It was just let's go, dude. Let's go and do this, and then we'll see. We'll just carry on and see what happens, and we'll manage. You have to be a bit insane to do that,
Yeah.
um, to take the leap, but it's well worth it.
Were you still like at your parents' place, or were you already independent with paying like bills, rent, and stuff like that? Because sometimes when you have
Um,
like less expenses, easier to take the leap. Like worst case, you're gonna.
yeah, well, I don't remember that, but I think I don't know. I remember maybe for a few months perhaps, I was still living with my parents. But this was not the. I think whoever it is I was dating back then, or how my life was, and it, just evolved, made me. It was kind of independent. It didn't mean I had more money to pay for rent or anything like that, or maybe it happened. I don't remember. And at the end of the day, you just, you have to do. I mean, my parents or the rent that I would pay was not a problem for me doing work because I was doing work anyway. Outside university, I was getting paid, a minimal wage for my job back then, but it was enough for me. So I never relied on my parents for expenses except for when I was living with them. Um,
And
yeah.
how was last year when the whole things kicked in? Did you need to shift a lot your working way at the company because of the, I don't know, lockdowns, or did you lost some job, like some assignments you had?
Yeah, nice question. That's the trick question. Um, it was when it started. It was pretty hardcore because projects stopped for a month or so, a month and a half. So we had to rethink, what we were doing, and we didn't know what was going to happen. So um, unfortunately, we had to cut wages temporarily to make it through the unknown period that would be finished or not. So for a while, we had to do that. We struggled to. I mean, we decided to stay in the space that we are still in um, right now because it's a very cool place to be in, to work out of. And eventually, we decided to, for everybody to go home and work from home, to remote in on the computers in the office. I was there all the time because I live on the same street with the office, so it's really easy for me. And yeah, one of our colleagues decided to get a freelance job because he wasn't sure how long that thing would last, and we kind of had to part ways. But then later on, we got two new colleagues joining the team, while another one left. So we're kind of the same number as when it started, and we found ways that are very interesting to collaborate. These calls in the morning, the check-in calls in the morning, check-in calls in the afternoon, every now and then, which are now harder to do when we're back here in the office. So I think the discipline that we had through the COVID months is something that I'm envious of right now. Um, Clients kind of stayed missing in action for a while, but we got different clients, and it was a interesting experience, different from the recession in 2008 that we went through.
And what is your opinion about this remote working or home office, or whatever you define it in Romania? Because some call it like differently. Smart.
Yeah, I, as I said, I appreciate what the challenge that we were facing, and the way that we didn't feel much difference, uh, you know, working from home opposed to working from the office, except for the interaction. I mean, you don't get that interaction. For instance, we were not using video during calls because I don't know, it's 9 a.m., you're in a call, you don't have to wear makeup, you don't have to feel bad for, not fixing your hair or shit like that.
You're putting
So,
makeup on.
yeah, secretly, yes, I am.
Nice.
No, but I mean, for us guys, it's easier. For a girl, it's, they 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 tend to be, looking
Yeah.
after themselves better than the guys.
Yeah, I think they
So
over push themselves because sometimes we are not that it's not that important. But in general, like if like from now on, let's say if tomorrow it was everything to come back to whatever it was before, would you be still open to be like with some of your employees to be like, if you want to work 2 3 days from home or 4 days from home, or to like would that be a chance for you? Because for example, I don't know how it's in the archivist, but in the architectural field, most of the people who I talked to also on this podcast, they were like, yeah, it's something that we need to do, but we're not gonna keep on with this because it doesn't work really. And I think it's a matter of
y-
mindset.
yeah, it's a matter of mindset. It's also a practical thing. As I said, the human interaction is not there, and it's very important, especially when you get new people joining the team. What is the team? How are they behaving with, among each other? The How do you pass on the information? How do you exchange? How do you ask for help? Who do you ask for help? Do you ask the manager? Do you ask the someone who's, on a Skype call? You have to purposely call them or be in a room like on Discord or something, or like Clubhouse. I don't know. So these technical things kind of manage to cut the communication that you would like to have. And then there's a synchronicity between what a person does when they're at home and what your schedule is in the office, because we keep the schedule pretty tight. I mean, we start at 9, we finish up at 6. So when you're home, you try to you become a freestyler of, you know you get your cat and you extend your lunch, and maybe I don't know, you take some time off at 11 or something. So uh, people who are not with you in that apartment, when can they rely on you? These are the things that we found are a bit daunting when doing this remote thing. And I don't want to be, like, install this software that's counting the hours and the moves of your mouse, right? This is not how it works. You have to commit, and it's difficult for a team to work like that, even if there's an upside. The downsides are the cohesion, the team cohesion, and communication is not the same. So I wouldn't be so confident in having, maybe temporarily, but if there are ways to go around it, I would definitely choose being here with everybody, so we can, interact as humans. That's really important for us.
Yeah, I think I the myself, most of the time I go to the office, but sometimes I stay home, but not most of the week. I'm in the office. We wear masks, and every time you leave your place, you need to wear a
Yes.
mask and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think there is something into going in the office, as you said, relationship, team building. The one thing that I think it's really easy to do when you're together in the office, it's when you have this quick question about this one little thing, and then you can ask that, and that's something that really
Precisely.
it's not possible from home. But I think that I yeah, well, depends on the organization. In my point of view, it's that maybe in the future we should use this sort of world exercise of distancing as a possibility for in some special occasion to I don't know, work from home, um, and being more flexible. I don't know. We'll see
Yeah,
how
yeah.
this develop.
I definitely support that thought. And just, freelancing is very common in the industry. So if you want to work with a freelancer, he can be overseas, so you're not going to invite him in because it would be not making any sense. So if you have a system put in place which can manage the project with the involvement of someone who's working outside the office, then it's pretty easy to extend that system to the whole team. The only thing is, I mean, you need to have a control center, right? So if the flight control people would be remote, you would still need you need someone who with the eyes in the tower, and that's why you have several of those people because they can cover 360 degrees, right? So this, I think it's kind of the same thing, in my opinion. Decide on who's the core team and who's managing stuff from the center, and then who can be satellite.
Yeah, and as in this thing for me also, there should be like there is some balance where I understand both. Like you need to have some sort of discipline and control, but you can also like knowing the person, like you can lose it. Depends. It's an interesting topic. I'm very curious how it's gonna envelop my, for example, my fear was not fear, but I was thinking that by doing this whole remote work, companies here in the, for example, in Germany or in other countries where, for example, it's um, let's call them countries with a high GDP per capita, which means like where
Mhm,
people
mhm.
earn a lot per
Yeah.
capita. We'll figure out like why don't we hire people in Poland or Bulgaria or Romania or whatever, pay them like, because in the end of the day you need some control center somewhere and then you can then decentralize everything. But I don't know, so far companies are not leaning towards that idea. And this is something that is explained in the book, Super Thinking, that when you have a new concept of or theory of idea, it won't become standard until the last person who's hanging on the old idea isn't dead. So I think
Oh
this,
my god. Okay.
yeah, it's,
That's radical. That is a radical thing to say, but yeah.
yeah, they make the example of facts, like that everybody
Yeah.
still has facts but nobody uses it, so we're going to see until when. Yeah,
You
so
cannot ignore the shift. There's going to be a shift, and we've seen, office space around here. Companies downsizing because they're downsizing, but the per person office space needs to be larger because they got to be spaced differently in the office. So they end up occupying the same space but with less employees. So some companies have moved, have changed offices during this period, and I'm not really sure how they're going to go back. Um, but I am confident this is becoming a standard, at, in some regard, and it's up to the company to decide how to cope with future threats that are probably going to happen again. So if you, yes, we wear masks, we do all the, sanitizing thing. It works. It works. Um, I think we're healthier for wearing masks because all the pollution doesn't influence us that much. So there's an upside as well. And it's just, you got to sign up to wearing a mask, and then you're all right. And for a small company, I have to admit, paying rent is a hurdle. Any kind of rent. Okay, we're not in London, but we're paying a premium for a beautiful space that we're in, and that it's pressure. It would have been so much easier, and if everybody told me, "Why do you still care for this space? Just give it up, move into a smaller place or something, an apartment or something." But then, you got all the tech. You need the space to grow, so I think the main topic here is how you are prepared um, for times when things don't work out as you would like them to? Are you prepared? Do you have a runway? Um, do you get by? I mean, do you run your business in a way that produces enough revenue for you to just blow shit like this away without even thinking about it? Of course, you're affected, but it. That's what I was saying earlier. This is a serious game, and you gotta play it like a pro, right? So um, times when you don't get jobs, these happen. You will lose projects. This will happen. Mm, we need to understand how what is the you know what is the level of the game that we need to play in the archviz industry, and not play the uh, zero sum game, because that doesn't help anyone.
And when you were mentioning games, I think that if Archivist had leagues, you would be for sure in the first league. I wanted to ask, what is the?
Oh, thank you.
I asked that like for all the other offices too, because also the idea behind the podcast is who is listening to figure out which direction to take. What is the entry level for you to be part of Panopticon as a archivist artist or architect? Because I asked this question to Lucian too, and he said like, yeah, of course it would be nicer the most experience you have, or the most to use 3ds Max is good, but what is the minimum? Because for example, also at Luxigon they said like, we're not taking juniors. We don't like, we need to take people who are already skilled, ready to go, and maybe slightly adjust to the workflow in the office. I know about other, because I follow a lot of other offices on social media. This is also how we find each other.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
there
yeah.
is this, I don't, for sure maybe you know about them. They're a huge company in Bulgaria, Red
Red
Vertex,
vertex.
and
Yeah,
they take every kind of like, they're like I don't know, their style of images. It's I think adjusted for whatever they need for their clients,
yeah.
but they so many people from in Bulgaria just go there, or even from abroad, learn the skill, and then they start their own thing, and they take every level. Like if you can open 3ds Max and do some boxes, I think it's it's also okay. So what is in your case?
And since we're a small team, um, and we don't have an academy put in place yet. We're trying to do that for ourselves, not as a service. But I think I would love to say we could onboard anyone, but then it's up to us whether to send them or enroll them in a class that teaches them and brings them up to speed to what we need. Maybe we need someone who's a good modeler, and that's it, and they don't need to be able to make images. But so far, our approach was that each of us is able to handle any project from A to Z. So you need to be skilled to cope with any demand, to cope with any you know hurdle in the project, to be aware of how the project runs, the how you need to manage the project, even talk to the client. And this is something that I mean, a full player is the kind of person we have been looking for. And since we're not 80 or anything, we may not be 80 even in 10 years. I don't know. We're just gonna see what the future holds. But I would love for us to be able to teach people that are not that skilled. And mm, of course, no one is skilled to doing exactly what we're doing. I mean, someone joining from another studio, they have another workflow. The demands were different. You cannot ask someone to be 100% ready to produce something that only you have on your mind. So it's really important to be open-minded. I think the only big request, big ask that I have of someone joining is to be a good person. I think Lucian said the same thing. We don't like egocentric and selfish people. Um, this is very, very, you know, uh, important for us. So you can interact and you're just be humble about things. And this is teamwork. There's never almost never authorship or getting upset because your concept didn't pull through or stuff like that. So it's teamwork. We're just trying to make things better together. And everybody who joins realizes in the end that they have full control over the work that they do. It's not me or a colleague or anyone else telling them what to do, but there is art direction that goes into these projects, which eventually will align the projects with our ethos and our goals and the client goals. And then there's also a certain way of working, a certain preset um, I don't know, workflow, or I don't know how to call it, tools. It's, you're sitting down in a chair where everything is pretty much set. So you can output an image in 5 minutes. That's a good image. So it's already a system that works, but there's so many things in ArchViz and technical stuff and Max and V-Ray and all the softwares, the new ones and the new directions and the new lines of thinking and new discoveries that you really must be curious to find them all out, to store them into your brain and to practice them and try to become better than what we're offering.
Are you guys all from Romania at your office currently, or are there some internationals?
For now, yes, we're all from down here. Trying to stay international in how we name the files and the work, because sometimes you need to transfer files to the client and maybe you work with a freelancer, but I mean the system is meant to be ready to welcome people that are not local, but we haven't made that step yet, except for freelance artists that we may work with.
I think we could go all day long talking about different topics because I think you have many sides as a person, as a character, many polygons, if I can can use a term from
You're
artists.
very high res, very
Very
high res.
less, and I don't want to take the all your time away from your weekend.
It's a
It's
pleasure,
nice
man.
to talk. I want to conclude now in the like we're trying to do small improvements along the way, and we talked a lot about reading in this episode. But I want to ask you if you could say what was in your life some book or movie or even a song or any kind of media that it's was remarkable for you or somehow pops up now in your mind so that you can share and the listeners might decide to go with it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's a great question because I am a music buff, first of all. I'm a film buff, secondly. Music was with me since I was a child. Was my parents would play classical music ever since I was born, so I was just like rigged into music. And I remember one particular album that I got when I was like 10 maybe, or 9 or 10, which was the soundtrack for by Vangelis for Blade Runner. And I hadn't seen the film. And I tell you, it was so immersive that when I got to see the film, it all clicked. It was like exactly the same feeling. It was so aligned to what was sonically there. And it was a fascination for me, this film, because it stuck with me for the rest of my life. And I was really, really young when I saw it. So I think music is something that informs the way I see image making. Although, many people would say, yeah, look at photography, look at film. Every film that you see is a part, visual parts, uh, sound, whether it's just, sound effects or a dialogue, but music is there all the time. And I think, there's a sort of melancholy to the stuff, to the way I see the maximum impact in an image, maybe a romantic approach, but it's I think it's really important to be honest about what your inspirations are and try to find the exact, as you asked me, do you remember something in your past? Dig deep in your past, and not try don't try to go by the trends, but dig and see whether you can use something in your past, in your mind, in your soul, that can inform the work that you do, because being honest about it is really the best thing you can do. um yeah, that's kind of my main inspiration in life, I believe. And now, I was so happy with the next one. um it completely shifted uh that that idea I had about Blade Runner. It's much darker, it's much rougher. There's almost no music in this one, and that's a lesson to learn. You can't stay a romantic for the rest of your life. Sometimes you gotta be shape shifting, and we all need to shape shift after a while. We need to remain relevant. So yeah, it's a discovery process in life.
Nice, man. It was super inspiring talking to you. I said to Lucian too that as soon as traveling issues are off, I want to travel a little bit around and visit my guests. So I hope that I will be able
You're welcome.
to visit also your office and you in Bucharest, and it to make my first Romanian visit. Now I have a
Anytime, dude.
big risk.
Anytime.
Before we
Be so happy
conclude,
to see you here.
where can people shout out? Where can people find more about your work online? So that, and I'm gonna for sure link it in the description of the episode.
Yes, the website is the Panopticon with a K.com. The Instagram is the dot Panopticon, at the dot Panopticon. And of course, on the website you would find links to the Behance, to Facebook, to Instagram, and all that stuff.
I'm gonna put everything in the description of the episode, and also I want to shout out again that if the people like the podcast, can support it on social media at TCI Podcast Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, The Creative Insider. And we have a newsletter where you can get the best of every month in written form, so that you avoid distractions. So join the newsletter, and thank you very much, and thank you, Tudor.
Thank you, Georgie. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. It was a huge pleasure and a huge honor to talk to you. Really admire the work that you do and the resilience. So many episodes that I still have to discover, and I recommend everybody to take a look at the podcast and go through each one. It's pure knowledge for free.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Have a good weekend. Bye bye.
You too, my friend. Bye.
The whole world stops just like that.